I remember the moment like a crack of lightning in the middle of a pitch-black sky. The house was silent. Too silent. You know that eerie kind of quiet that feels wrong? That's how it felt as I stood alone in the oversized kitchen of the Mitchell estate, staring blankly at a half-sliced apple on the marble counter. It was nearly midnight, and everyone was supposed to be away in Cape Cod, enjoying their luxury family vacation. Everyone, except me and Savannah. She was 9. My niece by marriage. They said she was brain dead, unresponsive, beyond hope. A tragedy everyone just learned to live with. Or so they claimed. They asked me to watch her, said it would be simple, she doesn't move, doesn't speak. Just follow the schedule and don't forget her meds. That was it. But that night, everything changed. As I walked back to the living room with her medicine in hand, I froze. Because she wasn't in her hospital bed. She wasn't in her wheelchair. She was standing. Yes, standing. On her own 2 feet, leaning slightly on the doorframe. Eyes wide, awake, alert. My heart dropped to the floor. And then she did something that shattered the reality I thought I knew. She whispered. Soft. Fragile. Terrified. Don't give me the pills. They make me sick. Aunt Claire, they're going to kill me for the money. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My brain tried to reason, to deny, to explain it away. But there was no mistake. She was talking, and she was begging me to save her. In that moment, I realized something truly horrifying. Savannah wasn't brain dead. She had never been. She was being drugged into silence. Controlled. Hidden. Because someone close wanted her inheritance more than they wanted her alive. And I was the only person left in the house who could stop them. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying to prove that I belonged. Not in some grand, global way, but just in a room, in a family, in a life that never really felt mine. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood outside Detroit. My father was a mechanic. My mom worked the night shift at a nursing home. We didn't have much, but we had enough. And what we didn't have in money, we made up for in grit, long hours, and a stubborn refusal to give up. That's how I got through college. Through med school. Through the long nights of studying while waitressing at a 24-hour diner just to keep the lights on. Every step I took on my own. I earned everything. But the first time I met the Mitchells, my husband Evan's family, all that meant nothing. To them, I was Claire from public school. Claire with the student loans. I wasn't a doctor. I was a woman playing dress up in a white coat. His mother, Virginia Mitchell, never once called me doctor. Just Claire. And always with that smile. That condescending, controlled smile like she was looking at something unpleasant through a shop window. Evan's sister Lauren was vociferously cruel, her words dipped in honey but sharp as glass. You work in emergency medicine, right? I just don't know how you do it, all those sticky people. Sticky. She meant poor. Harold Mitchell, Evan's father, was a former hospital board chair and still had ties all over the state. Powerful ties. The kind that can make or break medical careers with one phone call. He never said much directly to me, but his silence spoke volumes. Even Evan. God, I love him, but even he couldn't quite bring himself to stand up to them. He always played peacemaker, trying to smooth things over while I sat silently, shrinking inside my skin. Every dinner, every holiday, every family trip, it felt like I was performing a role in someone else's play. And no matter how hard I tried, the script never had a space for me. They were old money. Country clubs, foundation galas, legacy board positions. I was new effort. Calloused hands and sterile gloves, 24-hour shifts, student loan interest still accruing. They never saw me as one of them. Just someone Evan had picked up during his rebel phase. An outsider. A placeholder. But here's the thing about outsiders. We see things the insiders miss. We notice the lies they've learned to live with. We hear what they've silenced. We ask questions they've long stopped asking. So when they left me in that house alone with Savannah told me to follow the chart and not ask questions, they thought they were handing the responsibility to someone who would obey. They had no idea they were giving it to someone who'd spent her entire life fighting for the truth. And that was their first mistake. It started with a phone call. A Tuesday afternoon, just after my shift ended. I was standing outside the hospital, scrubbing hand sanitizer into my palms, too tired to process anything except the ache in my feet. My phone rang. It was Virginia. "Claire," she said, her voice as sweet and cold as iced tea in winter. "We've made a decision. Not, we have a favor to ask. Not, would you be willing to help? Just, we've made a decision." I didn't get a word in before she continued. "Evan and I are taking the family to the Cape this weekend. A little rare old's been working far too hard, and the rest of us need time to breathe. Lauren found a place with a private beach. We're leaving Friday." I waited, unsure why I was being informed. I wasn't invited. I never was. Then came the real reason. "We'll be leaving Savannah behind, of course." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "She's not well enough to travel, obviously. And the nurses, well, we've had to let them go. Budget cuts. You know how the world is. We were thinking it would be best if you stayed at the house to take care of her." Silence. Then I laughed. "You want me to take care of Savannah? For a whole week?" "2," she corrected. "We'll be gone for 14 days. Virginia, I work full-time. I have a hospital rotation, and—" She cut me off. "Claire, surely you can make arrangements. You're only in emergency medicine, not in surgery or anything critical. Harold said he could speak to someone at your hospital board if needed. He still knows people." My stomach twisted. She was already negotiating my career on my behalf. That's how the Mitchells operated quietly, surgically, using favors and pressure like a scalpel. Polite on the surface, coercive underneath. I didn't agree to this, I said flatly. But Evan already did. Of course he had. That was always the pattern. She'd push, he'd cave, and I'd be the one left to carry the weight of it. Later that night, Evan tried to make it sound reasonable. "Come on, Claire, it's just a couple weeks. Savannah won't need much. You'd just be staying at the house, giving her meds, maybe feeding her once or twice. She doesn't talk, she doesn't move, it's just monitoring." "She's not a fish tank," I snapped. "She's a child." He sighed. "They just need this break. Lauren's been on edge, and Mom thinks you're the only one she can trust with Savannah." "She doesn't trust me," I muttered. "She just doesn't want to pay another nurse." Still, I felt the familiar pull. The quiet guilt. The fear that saying no would damage something already cracked between Evan and me. And so, like so many times before, I swallowed the resentment and nodded. By Friday, I was packing an overnight bag and reviewing a care manual thick enough to be a textbook. I moved into the guest suite of their enormous, echoing estate and met Savannah in her hospital-style room. She didn't respond, didn't blink, just sat there in her chair, silent and still, like a porcelain doll left on display. I remember kneeling next to her and whispering, "I guess it's just you and me now, huh?" I had no idea how true that would become. The first 24 hours passed without incident. Savannah remained perfectly still, unmoving, expressionless. I followed the schedule the Mitchells had left like it was gospel medication at 9 a.m., 2 p.m., and 8 p.m. liquefied meals through a straw. Sponge baths. Daily vitals, logged precisely. She didn't blink, didn't cry, didn't speak. It was like caring for a breathing statue. The house was cavernous quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful, but oppressive. Like it knew secrets it wasn't ready to give up. I spent most of my time trying not to let the silence get to me, trying not to feel the cameras that I was sure were hidden in every corner. By dinner, I was exhausted. I set Savannah in front of the television in the living room, just like the manual instructed. I queued up some animated show, then headed to the kitchen to make something simple for myself. Pasta, sauce, garlic bread, comfort food. I had just started stirring the pot when I felt it. That creeping sensation that crawls up your spine, makes your shoulders tense, your breath hitch. The feeling of being watched. I turned around, expecting honestly, hoping to see a shadow or the cat I hadn't met yet. But what I saw stopped the air in my lungs. Savannah. Standing. She was in the doorway, feet bare, knees slightly bent, one hand pressed against the doorframe to keep balance. Her long, dark hair framed her pale face like a curtain, and for the first time, her eyes met mine. Fully. Clearly. And they were aware. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. It felt like the floor dropped beneath me. My body didn't know whether to scream, run, or collapse. I'd been told assured that this girl was beyond response, that she hadn't moved in years, that she was cognitively vacant, medically gone. But she was right there, awake, on her feet. And then she spoke. Her voice was soft, raspy, dry like someone who hadn't spoken in days, maybe years. "Don't give me the pills," she whispered. "They make me feel sick." She took a shaky step forward. My hand gripped the counter behind me like it was the only thing keeping me upright. "Aunt Claire," she whispered again. Then she said the words that ripped my world in half. "They're going to kill me for the money." I couldn't breathe. I dropped the spoon I was holding. It clattered on the tile, loud enough to feel like an explosion in the stillness of the room. "Savannah," I finally managed to say, my voice barely audible. "You can talk?" She nodded. Her eyes were pleading now, glassy with fear. "Please don't tell them. Please don't tell anyone." I stood up. "They'll know. They'll hurt me." I knelt slowly, afraid to move too quickly, afraid this moment would shatter like glass. "Honey, what are you talking about? Who's going to hurt you?" Her lip trembled. "My mom, Grandpa, Grandma. They say I'm broken, so they can keep my money. But I'm not broken." Her tiny shoulders shook as tears began to fall. "They make me pretend. The medicine makes everything blurry. I can't think right when I take it, but when I don't, I remember everything." I wanted to scream, to cry, to call someone. But instead, I reached out gently. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a sick child. This was a prisoner. And I had just stumbled into a truth they'd buried so deep, they never thought anyone would find it. They thought they'd hidden her, silenced her, destroyed her voice. But she had just used it. And now, I was the only one who knew. I didn't sleep that night. After Savannah whispered those words, "They're going to kill me for the money," my entire body locked into a state of alert I couldn't shake. Like every nerve had been pulled taut and was waiting to snap. She had walked. She had spoken. And now, she was terrified. I led her gently back to the guest bedroom. One of the only rooms in the house I knew didn't have cameras. I had noticed them earlier. Tiny black lenses tucked into corners, carefully angled to monitor Savannah's official bedroom, the hallways, even parts of the kitchen. But not here. Here, we could breathe. I helped her sit on the bed. Her knees wobbled like they didn't quite trust their own strength, but she was awake. Present. Her little hands clenched the edge of the blanket like she was still afraid I might disappear. I knelt down to her level. "Savannah," I said softly, "can you tell me what's going on? I need to understand." She looked down at her lap, then up at me again. And slowly, she started talking. "When I was little," she began, "I could run. I could talk. I liked climbing trees and painting with my fingers. Mommy said I was too loud, that I asked too many questions. I can Ray." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "After Granny and Pops died, everything changed." I blinked. "Granny and Pops?" "My other grandparents," she whispered. "My daddy's parents. They were nice. They gave me books and called me their sunbeam. But after they died in the car crash, Mommy got papers. She started giving me the medicine after that. What kind of medicine? I asked gently. She shook her head. She never said. Just that it was to help me calm down. But it made me sleepy. My arms got heavy. My words got stuck in my throat. And what happened if you didn't take it? Savannah's eyes filled with tears. She'd pinch me, lock me in the closet. Sometimes she'd say, if you act normal again, they'll send you away. No one wants a broken kid who lies. My stomach turned. I felt like vomiting. And your grandparents, Virginia and Harold, do they know? She nodded slowly. They told Mommy it was the only way to keep the money safe. They said I was too young to understand, but if I was declared unfit, they could control it forever. Her tiny mouth formed each word with care, as if she had practiced them, memorized them. How do you know about the money? I asked. Her answer chilled me to the bone. I taught myself to read. When no one was looking, Mommy leaves papers out sometimes. I look at the numbers. I remember words. And I keep a diary. She crawled to the edge of the bed and reached under the mattress. From underneath, she pulled out a small spiral notebook worn, bent at the corners, and covered in stickers. She handed it to me with shaking hands. Inside were pages of tight, careful handwriting. Some letters were reversed, some misspelled. But the content was devastating. They said if I talk, the money goes away. Grandpa said if I tell, no one will believe me. Mommy switched my doctor. She said the old one asked too many questions. There were also lists of dates, names, snippets of conversations. She had been keeping record. In secret. 4 years. I don't want to go back to sleep, she whispered suddenly, crawling into my lap. Not the kind of sleep they make me do. I held her tightly, my arms trembling with rage and heartbreak. She wasn't just remembering. She had never forgotten. And now, for the first time in her life, someone was finally listening. The next morning, the world looked different. The kitchen still gleamed with polished marble. The halls were still lined with portraits of a family that wore power like a uniform. But everything felt hollow now. Plastic. Fake. Because I knew what they were hiding. Savannah wasn't just a child with a tragic story. She was the key to something bigger, something deliberate, orchestrated, and cold. After breakfast, my breakfast. Savannah barely touched her toast. I asked her if she could show me anything else. Anything that could help me understand more. She hesitated at first. Then she nodded. She took me to Amanda's home office. I'd only peeked in once before, too sterile, too curated. It was the kind of room no one really worked in, just used to impress people. But Savannah knew it intimately. There's a file drawer, she whispered, pointing to the sleek white cabinet near the window. The keys under the plant. She was right. Inside were folders, dozens of them, some labeled in Amanda's angular handwriting, others without any names at all. We started pulling documents, laying them out across the desk. Bank statements, emails, legal letters. Some were recent, others dated back 5 years. That's when I saw it, the trust agreement. It had a gold seal at the bottom, and Savannah's full name typed in bold at the top. Savannah Grace Mitchell, Byron. Byron. That was her father's last name. A man I had never met. No one talked about him. I wasn't even sure he was still alive. The document was from a law firm in Colorado. It detailed a $7.8 million trust, left to Savannah by her paternal grandparents Elaine and Richard Byron, who had both died in a car accident when Savannah was just 3. The money was to be held in trust until Savannah turned 18. Amanda, her mother, was named the temporary trustee. But there were conditions. The trust required Savannah to be evaluated for mental and physical competence by independent physicians at ages 9, 13, and 17. If found competent, full access would be transferred to her. I read the line again and again. The first evaluation was supposed to happen this year, in just 2 months. I looked at Savannah. She was tracing shapes on the edge of the desk, lost in her own thoughts. They don't want me to turn 9, she said suddenly, her voice small. What do you mean? They say once I'm 9, doctors will start asking questions. Mommy says I won't pass the test, that I'm too far gone. So they have to keep giving me the sleepy pills. My heart dropped. They weren't just drugging her for control. They were deliberately trying to sabotage her ability to meet the requirements of the trust, to keep her legally unfit, permanently. I found emails confirming a correspondence between Amanda and a private doctor out of state. Phrases like, keep the dosage consistent, and no unexpected alertness leapt off the page. Then I found something even more chilling. A scanned letter from Harold Mitchell Savannah's grandfather to a judge. It requested a court-approved amendment to the trust, allowing Amanda to retain control of the assets indefinitely, citing severe mental and neurological regression in the child. It hadn't been filed yet, but it was prepared, ready, waiting. I sat down slowly, the weight of it all pressing into my chest. This wasn't mismanagement. It wasn't neglect. It was fraud, medical abuse, and conspiracy. They had created a narrative, one of illness, silence, and helplessness, not to protect Savannah, but to ensure she never became her own person. Because if she did, they'd lose everything. And that, I realized, was the true sickness in this house. I didn't say a word to anyone. No calls, no texts, no emails from the Wi-Fi. I used my cellular data in airplane mode, Bluetooth off. I had seen enough medical thriller sand, lived through enough hospital politics to know when I was standing in dangerous territory. Because what I had now wasn't just a story. It was a case. And someone, somewhere, was willing to hurt a child to keep it buried. After Savannah showed me the trust documents, we returned to the guest room, the only safe room. I sat on the edge of the bed, the file in my lap, her tiny notebook beside it. I need to copy this, I said. Every single page. She nodded solemnly. Over the next few hours, while Savannah quietly read her picture books, I photographed everything. Her diary, the trust documents, the emails, the financial reports, even the doctor letters laced with vague but damning phrases like patient presence with profound unresponsiveness consistent with chronic neurological decline. WTF. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud server. Private one, my best friend, Maya, an attorney, had given me years ago during a malpractice scare. I backed it up again to an encrypted USB I kept in my purse, just in case. Then, I did something terrifying. I started searching the house. Not recklessly, quietly, strategically. Only during the mid-afternoon window when Savannah's daily nap was scheduled and I knew no one would be watching live. We started in Amanda's walk-in closet. Behind the handbags, Savannah whispered. She hides stuff there. She was right. Buried beneath a stack of designer purses was a slim fireproof box. Inside, prescription pads, unsigned evaluation forms, and a stack of photosome reel, some clearly staged. One showed Savannah slumped over in a wheelchair, head tilted dramatically, with a caption reading, "Nonverbal episode during cognitive testing." I felt sick. It was like they had curated her disability, built a persona of helplessness and reinforced it with evidence. Next, we checked the garage. Harold's locked cabinet had no key in sight, but Savannah knew where the spare was, hidden behind the garden hose. Inside were financial statements, legal drafts, and surveillance notes. Surveillance notes. A black notebook filled with entries about Savannah's movements, facial expressions, eating habits. Not written by a doctor, not written by a nurse. Just observations. Someone had been documenting whether she broke character. She scratched her head at 3:14 p.m. She blinked too fast during the visit from the hospice counselor. She responded slightly to audio stimulus corrective dosage given. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just financial abuse. This was behavioral conditioning. They were training her, like a pet. Savannah sat quietly on the floor beside me, tracing circles into the dust with her finger. She didn't cry. She didn't whimper. She was used to this. That realization hit me harder than anything else. I need to call someone, I said. But not from here. Do you trust them? She asked quietly. I nodded. Her name's Maya. She helps kids like you. She's safe. I waited until late that night, well past midnight, to step outside onto the back patio with my phone. I dialed Maya, heart pounding in my throat. I told her everything. The trust. The pills. The cameras. The files. She didn't interrupt, just listened. Until I stopped. Then she exhaled. Claire, she said, her voice low and grave. This isn't just abuse. This is criminal. You're sitting in the middle of a felony case, and they have the resources to bury it if they sense a threat. I know. You need to keep pretending everything's fine, she said. Keep collecting, keep documenting, and do not let them know Savannah can speak. Not yet. I hung up and turned back toward the house. Inside, Savannah was waiting in the hallway. Are we in danger? She asked. I didn't leave. Yes, I whispered. But not as much as they are. By day 3, I knew I was in over my head. I'd uncovered more than abuse. More than manipulation. This was a machinia system engineered to keep Savannah silent, docile, and legally invisible. And I was standing in the middle of it with a terrified 9-year-old and a purse full of copied documents. I needed backup. Not just moral support, legal firepower. I waited until Savannah was safely curled up in the guest room, buried beneath blankets and a flashlight, reading one of the books I'd brought from home. Then I stepped outside again, phone pressed tightly to my ear as it rang. Claire? Maya's voice came through instantly, alert and breathless. You okay? No, I said. But I'm ready. I filled her in on everything I'd found since our last call. The forged medical records. The surveillance notebook. The trust amendment waiting for court submission. She was quiet for a long time. Then, Jesus. This isn't just bad, it's coordinated. They've spent years making this airtight. And Claire, if you hadn't been the one left alone with her, they might have gotten away with it. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I need to know what comes next, I said. Maya shifted into lawyer mode instantly. I could hear it in her tone, precise, focused, unshakable. First, we document everything. Don't just take photos, record video if you can. Walkthroughs of the house. Audio clips of Savannah explaining things in her own words. Make sure she's never in frame alone. Always with you. They'll try to say you coached her. Already started, I said. What else? Secure a second copy of the evidence. Somewhere they'll never find it. Can you mail something out? I can drop it off at a friend's house across town. She won't ask questions. Good. Do it today. What about Savannah? I asked, lowering my voice. What if they come back early? If that happens, she needs a signal. A word or phrase she can say if she feels unsafe. Something casual, but something that tells you she's in danger. We settled on, I'm tired of cartoons. She says it, you act. No hesitation, Maya said. Also, does she have a phone? Number? Of course not. Buy one. Cheap. Burner phone. Teach her how to hide it and when to use it. I am in. Okay, I said, scribbling notes furiously. And Claire? Yeah? This is going to get ugly. You're poking a hornet's nest. These people, especially the grandfather, they're connected. That trust? If it's amended quietly, no judge will look twice. The second she's deemed permanently unfit, they get everything. I closed my eyes. She's not unfit, I whispered. She's brilliant. I know that. You know that. But the court doesn't yet. So we're going to build a wall of truth so thick they can't bulldoze through it. That line stuck with me. A wall of truth. Not just justice. Not just exposure. But protection. I'll send a team in 3 days, Maya said. You keep playing the game until then. Don't confront anyone. Don't let on. Smile through every check-in call. Tell them Savannah's the same, drugged and silent. Got it. And Claire? Yeah? I'm proud of you. Most people would have walked away. I looked back through the patio window. Savannah had fallen asleep in the guest room, her notebook clutched in her hand like a lifeline. I couldn't, I said. She trusted me. It was 3:07 a.m. when I heard the door open. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The sound was distant, surreal, like a scene playing out in someone else's life. But then came the voices. Low, controlled, familiar. The sound of rolling luggage wheels across tile. A zipper. A man's deep sigh. I shot up in bed, heart slamming in my chest like a war drum. They were back. The Mitchells. Early. At night. Without warning. They weren't supposed to return until the afternoon. I had at least 10 more hours to finalize our preparations. To meet with Maya's team. To run. Now, time had evaporated. And we were exposed. I sprinted across the hallway in the dark and found Savannah already sitting upright in bed, wide awake. Her eyes were locked on the door, her arms wrapped around her knees. They sometimes do this, she whispered. To check if I've been behaving. Her voice trembled. I leaned down beside her. Remember the plan? She nodded slowly. Go back to your room. The one with the cameras. Get in bed. Don't speak unless I'm next to you. No movement. No emotion. Just like before. She hesitated, but only for a second. Then she climbed out of bed, pulled her robe tight around her, and walked back down the hallway like a ghost retracing her prison steps. I had just slipped into the kitchen when Amanda appeared at the end of the corridor. Her face was bare, her hair pulled into a tight ponytail. She was still in her travel clothes, eyes sharp and scanning. What are you doing up? She asked. I thought I heard something. I lied. Didn't expect you back so early. Daddy's meetings ended sooner than planned, and Lauren wanted to see her stylist. She walked past me without pause, heading toward Savannah's bedroom. My palms were sweating, my stomach churned. Everything's been going fine, I offered quickly. She's been quiet, just like before. Amanda paused at the threshold of the room. Then she turned. I want to see the log. The medication log? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She nodded. It's on the kitchen counter, I said, right where you left the binder. She disappeared down the hallway. I walked quickly to Savannah's room and stood by her bed. She lay still, her face slack, her eyelids lowered but not fully closed. Amanda returned moments later and stared at her daughter for a long, uncomfortable silence. She looks too alert. I felt my throat tighten. She had some twitching yesterday, I lied. Probably muscle memory. It happens sometimes, but she's still nonverbal. Didn't make a sound. End quote. Amanda leaned down, brushing a strand of hair off Savannah's face. Maybe we need to increase her dosage, she muttered. Savannah flinched barely, but enough. Amanda didn't notice, but I did. I wouldn't change anything yet, I said quickly. Her body's used to the current schedule. Sudden increases might trigger side effects. Amanda stood up and crossed her arms. I don't like surprises, she said flatly. Don't make me regret trusting you. Then she left. I waited. Counted to 60, then leaned down and whispered into Savannah's ear. You did perfect. She exhaled so softly I barely heard it, but her eyes stayed open all night. The morning passed like a silent negotiation. Everyone pretended. Virginia smiled too widely. Harold poured his coffee like it wasn't poison in a cup. Amanda hummed while unpacking her suitcase, calling out little reminders like, let's not fall behind on Savannah's routine, shall we? They were watching me closely, but trying not to make it obvious. And I was doing the same. Savannah stayed in character. Limp, vacant, silent. Every now and then, she'd glance at me. Just a flicker. A pulse of courage behind her lowered lashes. By noon, the temperature in the house had shifted. The family gathered in the formal living room as if summoned by some unspoken command. Savannah sat in her wheelchair, positioned like a prop. I stood behind her, one hand gently on her shoulder, anchoring her to something real. Then Harold spoke. "Claire," he said evenly, "we've noticed some inconsistencies in Savannah's logs." Virginia chimed in. "She missed a dose, according to the pill count." I didn't flinch. Maybe the count was off before I arrived. Amanda's smile was a slash. "Or maybe you're not as careful as we thought." There it was. The unspoken accusation. The tension that had been simmering all night finally rising. I could feel Savannah trembling beneath my hand. And then she stood. On her own. No warning, no cue. Just stood. All eyes snapped to her. Amanda gasped. Virginia's hands flew to her chest. Harold didn't even blink. Savannah turned to face them, chin high, voice clear, steady. "I'm not broken," she said. "You made me pretend." End of section. The silence was instant. Complete. The kind of silence that doesn't happen by accident only when everyone realizes they've been caught. Amanda took a step forward, hands shaking. "Savannah," she whispered. "Sweetheart, what are you saying?" "I remember everything," Savannah continued. "You gave me pills to make me slow. You told me if I talked, they'd lock me up. Grandpa said if I move when people are watching, I'd ruin everything." Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't stop. "You lied to doctors. You made videos where I had to droop my head so they'd believe you. You said if I passed the tests, you'd lose the money." Virginia stood up, frantic now. "She's having an episode, Claire. Sit her down." "She's not having an episode," I said firmly. "She's having a breakthrough." Harold stepped forward, calm as ice. "Claire, you have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I replied. "And I've recorded everything. The surveillance, the fake medical records, the trust documents. Savannah's voice is the last thing you'll ever be able to silence." Amanda lunged for her daughter. Savannah recoiled, crying out for the first time. But this time, I stepped between them. "Don't touch her," I snapped. "Try it again, and the only thing you'll be reaching for is a lawyer." Virginia was dialing someone I didn't care who. Because just then, the doorbell rang. 3 sharp chimes. I turned to Savannah. She looked up at me, her voice barely a whisper. "You said they'd come." I nodded. "They're here." I walked to the door, opened it, and let the sunlight pour in. Maya stood there with 2 uniformed officers and a woman in a navy blazer holding a CPS badge. "Mrs. Bennett?" the caseworker asked. "Yes," I said, stepping aside. "We're here for Savannah Mitchell." The moment the caseworker stepped into the room, everything shifted. It was like someone cut the strings, holding the Mitchells upright. Amanda's expression collapsed into panic. Virginia's rehearsed composure shattered like porcelain. Even Harold blinked. For the first time, I saw something behind his eyes that looked suspiciously like fear. The CPS officer stepped forward gently, her tone calm but firm. "Savannah? My name is Denise. I'm here to talk to you, sweetheart. Is that okay?" Savannah glanced at me. I nodded. She took a deep breath and said, "Okay." Amanda protested immediately. "She doesn't understand what's happening. She's fragile. She needs her medication." Denise turned to her, eyes narrowing. "We'll let a licensed, independent physician determine that. Not someone under criminal investigation." The officers moved in, collecting documents I had copied and labeled. Maya handed them a folder with digital evidence, the surveillance logs, the altered trust documents, the emails, and Savannah's recorded testimony. When Amanda realized what was happening, her panic turned feral. "You tricked me," she screamed at me. "You made her do this. You turned her against us." "No," I said coldly. "You did that all by yourself." Harold attempted diplomacy. "Let's be reasonable. Surely we can resolve this without causing permanent damage to the family." But Denise cut him off. "Sir, child abuse is not a family matter. It is a felony." Then the cuffs came out. Amanda wailed as they read her rights. Harold went pale, but offered no resistance. Virginia clutched her pearls and sat down, stunned. For once, her silence had no power. Savannah watched it all happen. She didn't cheer, she didn't smile, she just exhaled, as if 5 years of held breath had finally been released. She was taken for a full medical evaluation that night, accompanied by me and Maya. Evan arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, disoriented and visibly shaken. "I didn't know," he said softly as we stood outside Savannah's room. "You didn't want to know," I replied. He didn't argue, just nodded, then asked the only question that mattered. "What happens now?" Savannah was declared physically healthy, cognitively sharp, and traumatized beyond anything a child should ever endure. CPS began emergency custody proceedings. Amanda and Harold were both charged with multiple counts: child abuse, fraud, medical coercion, and financial exploitation of a minor. Virginia avoided arrest due to a lack of direct evidence, but her name was included in every civil suit that followed. Their carefully maintained empire crumbled within weeks. The family foundation was dissolved, their assets frozen, their social reputation destroyed. But the real victory was smaller, quieter. It came in the form of Savannah's voice growing stronger every day, her posture less guarded, her sleep finally peaceful. She still had nightmares. Still, sometimes woke in the middle of the night, afraid that it had all been a trick. But I was always there. Every time, I reminded her, "You're safe, you're free, you're never going back." Michael's husband stood by me during the storm. He cut financial ties with his family, started therapy, asked me if I could ever forgive him. I didn't answer right away, but I didn't walk away either. Some wounds take time. Some rebuilds are slow. But watching Savannah laugh again, watching her chase butterflies in the backyard and argue over which ice cream flavor is best, that was the kind of justice no courtroom could ever deliver. 3 months have passed since that night, since the door opened at 3 a.m. and the lies began to fall apart, since Savannah stood tall and used the voice they tried so hard to erase. And in that time, I've learned something I wish I'd known earlier in life, something that no textbook or medical rotation or family dinner ever taught me. Sometimes, doing the right thing means standing alone. Sometimes, it means being doubted, dismissed, even attacked. Sometimes, it means risking everything: your job, your marriage, your sense of safety, just to protect someone who has nothing but hope in their eyes. But if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't hesitate. Because the truth matters. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's terrifying. Even when it means confronting the people who raised us, loved us, or gave us a last name. The truth is what saved Savannah. Not just the evidence. Not just the files or the court orders. It was her truth. Her story. Her whispered words in the middle of the night when no one else was listening. That night changed me. I used to believe courage looked like charging into a crisis with a stethoscope and a trauma bag. Now I know it also looks like sitting quietly beside a scared child and saying, "I believe you." It looks like staying up until 4 a.m. to scan every document. It looks like playing board games and hiding burner phones in stuffed animals. It looks like preparing a child for a courtroom on breath, one question at a time. Savannah taught me that. Her strength wasn't loud, but it was unshakable. She had endured years of gaslighting, sedation, and staged performances, and still, somehow, she found the will to speak. She reminded me that bravery doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And when it does, we have 2 choices. We can look away, or we can listen and act. Today, Savannah lives with us. She goes to school. She has a purple backpack and an art teacher who thinks she's brilliant. She sings off-key in the car and insists pineapple does belong on pizza. She's healing. We all are. Evan and I are rebuilding too. Slowly. Deliberately. We're not the same people we were before the truth came crashing in. Honestly, I'm grateful for that. Because now, We live in a home where silence doesn't mean fear, where questions aren't punished, where stories are told and believed, even if they make us uncomfortable. So here's what I've learned. You don't have to be extraordinary to protect someone. You just have to see them, hear them, and care enough not to turn away. Because sometimes the most important thing you can do is stay, even when it's messy, even when it's dangerous, even when every part of you wants to run. The world doesn't change because powerful people say it should. It changes because ordinary people make extraordinary choices when no one's watching. And if you ever find yourself in that moment, faced with a quiet voice asking for help, listen, believe them, and be brave enough to stand up for the truth no matter the cost.